I'm still getting ready, so bear with me. Because I'm a little late. I'm a little late. I said I was going to come on at 7, and it's a little after. Hey, lady. Give me just 1 second. Mm, how's your day been? I've been like relaxing all day. You can see I'm still in my jammies. Okay. Are you still in yours? That's what I do on a Sunday, right? Like, let's do it. Let's do it on a Sunday. Okay, I need to figure out where I can set this other phone because I only have the one, I only have the one tripod. I should probably get a second one, but you know, it is what it is. And I need to make sure that everything is charged because did you know that whenever you go live, it like eats your battery. It just eats it up. So if you're new here, I am Vivian and I am going to be reading Gypsy Rose's new book, My Time to Scam, because hey Marcy, I know there are a lot of people who were really interested in the book but did not want to support her in any way. So I thought reading the book live would be a great way for people to hear the book yet not worry about her profiting. Hey, hey. So the other 10 chapters are already on my YouTube channel. I don't know how to download them and post them to TikTok because they are so long. So if anybody knows how to do that, you can definitely help me out with that. But for right now, I'm posting whatever we read on YouTube. So if you want to go to my YouTube and check that out, you can definitely do that. But I'm just gonna get cozy on my bed and we're just gonna read. I stopped yesterday purposely because I wanted to start this evening with the chapter, hey Rebecca, hey Marcy, with the chapter where she talks about Nicholas. I purposely stopped so that we could start with this chapter. Yes, we're having a pajama party. Pajama party. All right. Can everybody see and hear me okay? Hey, Stacy. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for following. Thank you, everybody, for the gifts that you guys sent yesterday. Those were very sweet and always appreciated. Okay. Because if you can't hear me, I do have a mic. I can mic up. You just let me know what I need to do. This is chapter 10, Meeting Nick. I met Nick on ChristianDatingForFree.com on October 12th, 2010. I really want to emphasize how she remembers that detail so well, it being October 12th, 2010, the way she recalls this detail, yet she doesn't know how old she is. I want you to think about these things. Just think, you know what I'm saying? Like the things to think about. Remember that she says she doesn't know how old she is, but she's able to recall to the very date when she started talking to Nicholas online. So I find that highly suspicious. Yeah, she probably did keep a diary. Yay, Heather, at the beginning. Okay. Creating my profile. Creating my profile allowed me the freedom to create something real and let go of my false persona. I find that to be funny. I dressed the way I thought I would look if I had grown up normal. The picture I posted was me wearing a brown wig because my hair would have been brown if my mother hadn't shaved it off. I wore a prom dress that my mother bought on clearance from JCPenney after prom season ended. Lying across my couch, I posed with a rose. I felt beautiful in my body. I liked having breasts and hips. Maybe I was on the way to finding myself, exploring myself, but that came to a screeching halt when I got matched with a boy named Nick who winked at me. He must have liked my profile description, which said basically, I'm a very happy, bubbly girl interested in sci-fi and fantasy. I am a virgin and I am waiting to commit myself to my husband. What a joke. You're welcome, Gracie. Yay, everybody loves slumber parties. Okay, I hope everybody's in their pajamas. Innocently, I added my love for animals and being outside, even though my time in nature was contained to brief visits to my backyard, marveling at butterflies and slugs. When I was surfing the internet, I was a butterfly. Nick said he wanted this butterfly to be his girlfriend, and it was the first time I experienced the feeling of pride. Someone wanted me for me. I wanted love and attention that had nothing to do with pity. So I made the videos he requested and directed. The more he praised me for a good job oh my God, after sucking on a dildo he had ordered from Japan. The more I believed he loved me, of course, when I would do the videos wrong, example, forgetting to call him master or not being a dirty enough girl, he threatened to pull that love away. I just want to say that I do not believe that Nicholas bought anything for Gypsy because she was the one who purchased his bus ticket, purchased the knife, bought his clothes. Like, she was the one who was doing everything for him. So for him to buy a dildo for her from Japan just doesn't fit with everything else that we already know about all the things that she sent to him to kind of prepare him for all of these things that she had set up, because he's not, I don't want to call him stupid. What I want to say is he's not very intellectually bright, and while he is able to have communication and effective communication, and he does seem to have some intelligence, it didn't seem like he was very proactive, if that is the right word, or and it also didn't seem like he was the aggressive type, the type of person who would do something like this, who would buy somebody a dildo and just send it in the mail. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that's right too. Everything comes from China. She was definitely more into the role playing than Nicholas was. So I don't believe this. And like I said in previous videos, anytime that she is ever saying that somebody else did something, I just want you to flip it and automatically assume that if Gypsy is saying that somebody else did it, that she's projecting that action onto them. But it was actually her. She was the one who was doing it. Hold on. There was a message that didn't get. Yeah, she's a weirdo. Hey, Hey, Nick. I don't know what Nick this is, but hey. And I'll try to keep looking at the comments to make sure that any comments that are being withheld, that I post them. Yeah, he played the roles because she kept threatening to like find somebody else. And this was his first girlfriend. So of course he wanted like first real girlfriend. And of course he wanted to do what she wanted him to do. Give me just 1 second. I just find it really interesting how ignorant she thinks that some people are. Like she thinks that we're all really naive. Hey Christine, hey Connie, hey Linda. Okay, Nick, nice to meet you. We're reading a book, and the chapter is called Nick. So it was a little weird to see your name come up. I was like, oh my God. Right. The way that he talks about his other personas and those kinds of things. It just doesn't seem like it was that he was the master. I think that she liked him pretending to be the master, but I think she was the one who was literally like in charge. Okay. I was familiar with the carrot and stick game. My mother loved me when I was sick and took her love back when I wasn't. In order to be accepted and loved, I needed to meet the expectation of others. Nick exposed me to a lot of sexually perverse things and ideas, but 10 years later, knowing what I know now about sex, he taught me all wrong. From what I've read, he didn't have an accurate idea of BDSM and he made it up as we went along. Of course, again, flip that. This is, I think she's talking about herself right here. The BDSM stuff made me cringe, and after a while, it demoralized me. I felt uncomfortable in the role of his submissive and winced when he verbally degraded me. But Nick would balance that out with an intricate fantasy world containing realms of good versus evil, which reminded me of the sci fi conventions and the stories and movies I enjoyed and needed to believe in. So I just want to go back to this comment where she wrote that she was a very bubbly girl interested in sci fi and fantasy. So she was into sci-fi and fantasy, but expects for us to believe that Nicholas was the one who introduced her to BDSM. It doesn't correlate. It doesn't match up. I was vulnerable to Nick, the only adult in my life who knew that I could walk. And I'm gonna say why did they put that in here right here? Because just a few chapters before, they said that Dan knew that Gypsy could walk. So the writers, not only is Gypsy contradicting herself, but the writers are allowing Gypsy to contradict herself in her own book. Why is nobody catching on to this? Like, I don't understand how Melissa and Michelle read through these books, proofread these books, and did not catch that she said that he was the only person that knew that she could walk. Yet, chapters before, Dan was also the first person that she told that she could walk. Y'all help me out with that because I am just like. That I didn't have labored breathing at bedtime, that I wasn't mentally disabled, that the scars on both sides of my neck were from an unnecessary surgery, and that I'd be under the knife again soon enough. I took off one mask of Gypsy Rose, replacing it with another mask of Gypsy Rose. Telling the truth felt like releasing a butterfly from a net, only for it to fly right into the mud. We both lived in a fantasy world where the innocence of imagination dies and resurrects into a world ruled by the improbable and the impossible. Nick lived in the realm of the improbable. In our elaborate conversations, he'd command his many minions and gargoyles to swoop me out of my princess room and into a dimension in which I was his queen. No, I'm sorry, in which I was queen, his queen. Nick's storytelling captivated me, precise and colorful, detailed and well crafted. If he hadn't included the perversion and the savage and depraved violence, he could have turned his stories into novels and sold millions of copies. I could feel the grooves of the stone walls of his castles and the smoothness of his horns, of the horns of the is this Seraptors circling in the labyrinth. Proper names for his creations rolled off of his tongue, suspending my belief in glorious ways. Night after night, I drank from his chalice of escape. Nick's realm had mystical beasts, evil spells, and poison potions. The upside down version of my reality. Like Earth's continents, Nick's fantasy world contains several lands separated by serpent-filled seas. Nick's evil twin brother lived in one realm, and he vowed to build a portal to the human world, where he would murder those in Nick's wake. I'm sorry, I shouldn't. Hopefully I don't get banned for saying that out loud like that. Yeah, she does. She remembers quite a lot. I saw her dressed as Anastasia Gray as well. You guys are really doing a great job in the chat. Keep it up. I'm trying to find where I stop. He Here he was a king and lived amongst 12 alien soulmates of different species. I was the only human soulmate, his queen, but not without a duty. And if I didn't fulfill it, I'd be cast out forever, losing the one king who would ever love me. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the love. The kingdom is where Victor, the 300-year-old vampire, lived. Okay. Now, we all know that she has talked about Victor and she said he was 500 years old, not 300. So, I mean, she's made many, many, many um mentions of Victor, and I'm pretty sure she said he was 500 years old. But correct me if I'm wrong. It was also home to the Dark One. These villains did not drink blood, they thirsted, however, for rape and murder of women, and not always in that order. Nick also had such a thirst for necrophilia, as he shared his fantasy of first unaliving and then graping his ex-girlfriend. I'm going to switch up the words so we don't get banned. After which he'd meticulously carve her skin with a knife to brand her with labels like whore, bitch, and slut. In Nick's realm, king and queen did not sit side by side, but as dominant and submissive, the queen being ruled over in all aspects. And it wasn't just sex. I'd only speak when told I could speak, and I'd be chastised for laughing at something funny because I hadn't yet been permitted. I could not make advances or ask questions without a code word. I role played with 4 different personas. Demona, who was a half werewolf, half human girl. Kitty, who was childlike. Candy embraced more of my slutty side, and Ruby was the evil one. Our laptop cameras became a portal between his realm and mine, transporting us both into our respective roles. Me dressing in costume, taking orders, speaking in the language of the realm, and addressing Nick as master. He would protect me from anyone, yes, even his evil twin brother, but only if I was a good girl and did what I was told. You have to understand, I thought my having a boyfriend would bring me one step closer to being a real teenager, like my neighbor Aaliyah and her friends. I thought that having a Facebook profile and liking and sharing things was going to ultimately initiate me into a culture club filled with peers and people watching and an actual community of which I was an active participant. If I couldn't physically reach out to touch the world, I'd bring the world closer to me. When Nick ordered me to touch myself, I thought it was his way of teleporting his touch to me. My hand a mere lever. He was controlling with a joystick from his dark kingdom in a faraway land called Wisconsin. Before I met Nick, my profile picture was of me in a yellow ruffled sundress, a floppy hat holding a teddy bear. We all remember that picture, right? Y'all remember that photo? It was the one that was on their profile picture, Dee Dee and Gypsy's profile picture, where my mother hold on, I don't know this word, def defeminized me. Oh, defeminized me. Okay, I'm sorry. Little brain fart. By putting a razor on my vagina. Nick told me I'd be a woman if he carved me up with a knife. Where my mother humiliated my femininity by binding my breasts, Nick ordered me to humiliate myself by slathering them with barbecue sauce or peanut butter. I was a mechanical doll, taking instruction and acting them out with pleasure or pain. I just was. Because I believed I was learning what love is. It is someone caring enough about you to dominate you. It is caring enough about someone to fulfill all his commands. I find this chapter very disturbing. Why would, I'm just asking a question, but why would her mother shaving her privates be defeminizing her, but Nick carving her up with a knife would be womanizing her? Aren't those kind of the same thing? I mean, kind of. The validation I'd received from Nick kept me compliant and submissive. In order to be accepted, I needed to keep him happy. I had no other suitors, no other reference point. I was all alone, and I wanted my aloneness to be cured, to treat it because it was the one true disease I actually had. So here she's saying that her aloneness was a true disease, not the chromosomal disorder. The chromosomal disorder isn't a true thing that she has. She wants to distance herself from that as much as she can. I needed to keep, oh, sorry. In order to be accepted, I needed to keep him happy. I had no other oh, I just read that. I'm sorry. Here is a guy who is into this odd stuff, okay, but how bad can it be? Maybe guys his age explore sexually in this way. How would I know or not know? I just wanted to be accepted, and I thought I'd do anything he wanted to stay in his life, even if that life was in a world of his own making. I had already lived in a world of someone else's making. At least in his, I was a woman. I'm so proud of you, he said, after I sent him my initiation video, which formally defined our roles in the BDSM relationship. At the end of the video, I had to say, please consider me as your submissive. As elaborate as the details of his fantasy realm, Nick would send me scripts to act out, direct my dialogue and costuming, and demand unusual sexual behaviors with phallic objects while contorting my body so my female parts were exposed like parts under the hood of a rusty old car. The other day when I was watching the podcast with her and Kale, she said very specifically that whenever she was doing these things, that these things were happening whenever her mother was either asleep or her mother was Gwen, I have no idea. Um, that these things were happening when either her mother was asleep or when her mother was not at home. So I just want to say, if you are, deathly afraid of your mother, are some of the things that she is saying that she was doing while her mother was asleep, are these some of the things that you'd be doing, like participating in? Because what happened if her mother was to walk in and she's got, a phallic sized object and putting it up to her mouth? Or if she's like positioning herself in such a way on the bed or on the couch or whatever, and her mom was to walk in and see this happening? She was so afraid of her that she unalived her, but she didn't care about doing these things in the home. I just find that to be a little questionable, because if you were this comfortable, like this is comfortable. This is comfortable. She was definitely very comfortable doing all of these things in her own house. And for her to be this comfortable, I don't see fear from her to her mom. Like, I'm not seeing her being afraid of her mom if you're this comfortable. This is something that you'd like sneak out of the house to do, not do in your house if you're afraid of your parent, in my opinion. The acting felt unnatural. No, she actually says it felt natural. The acting felt natural. During the day, I was a hairless, prepubescent, paraplegic child, squeaky voiced, running through scripts that prompted doctors to poke and prod me. Did y'all hear that? I'm going to read it again. During the day, I was a hairless, prepubescent, paraplegic child, squeaky voiced, running through scripts that prompted doctors to poke and prod me. Here she is admitting that the things that she was telling the doctors were scripted. At night, I was running through scripts, begging for the mercy of my master, as I poked and prodded myself. Day or night, mother or master, my identity was created in the image of a two-headed monster, a monster whose fetish was to feast on my dignity. Nick pulled BDSM through like a thread in a fantasy world stories. There was no separation between the realms of our dominant and submissive acts. Whatever we were doing or saying as dominant and submissive was all in service of his kingdom or the realm where the Dark One, where Victor, and where Nick's evil twin were all out to get me, to pillage me, and make me scream in horror and degrade my womanhood with each painful thrust of their daggers. He wanted me to denigrate myself with a 9-inch dildo he had mail ordered from Japan. I remember him ordering me to stalk the mailman because something was coming for me. I did intercept the unmarked package, and the thought of shoving the object up me made me queasy. Bad girl that I was, I told my master no when he told me to put it in all three of my holes. Good Jesus. You guys, I cannot believe that this book is rated for children 5 and older. There needs to be an explicit warning on this book because this is disgusting. Like, I'm disturbed reading this book out loud to an audience. I could not imagine it. Yeah, it's rated R. I think it's rated XR. Like, this is explicit. I could not imagine sitting down to read this to my child as like a bedtime story, or even wanting my own child to read this. If this was a book that I had written, I would not want my child to read this book. I don't even know what to say. So, oh my God, it's getting worse. So I just sucked on it for him, taking out my dentures to try to ease the gag reflex so I wouldn't vomit in my mouth. He called me names, whore, cunt, bitch, all the while my tongue painted the plastic, up, down, all around. The feeling of confused shame was familiar as I heard my grandfather's voice in my head. Minutes lasted between sounds of my swallowing and smacking until finally Nick ordered me to stop. I overlooked the malviolence and the kink in order to build something that wasn't there, a life with Nick. If I were free, what would it be like to live together? I'd ask him, unaware that he was engaged in video relationships with at least 3 other women. I'm going to stop right here for a second and say that Nick was not engaging in any other activities with anyone else aside from Gypsy. Her saying this about him being engaged with other women leads me to believe that she was engaging with other men behind his back. I think that she was looking for the perfect person to fulfill the fantasy crime that she had in mind to take out her mother. And he ended up being the one that was easily manipulated out of all of the 4 men that she was conversing with. Because I don't see Nick as a person who is, um, like the kind of person to jump around from relationship to relationship. He already had a really hard time keeping up with Gypsy and her different personas and her ups and downs. So I couldn't see him being able to juggle more than one person at a time because he was confused by her and the back and forth, the pushing and the pulling that she did to him. He was confused by that. So to say that he had other women just seems improbable to me. Yeah, she would, Pat. I think that that's where she should probably go in order to make money on OF. Hey, Flynn. Oh, thank you for mentioning that, JFK Annie. You're right. She did try to get JFK Annie said that Nick's mom was trying to get him to talk to other girls aside from Gypsy and that he wouldn't. So that again says that this right here is what she was doing, not something that he was doing. It wasn't just about having Nick control my life. I wanted to imagine our romance coming to life in my realm, the real world. What would it be like to be king and queen? I waited for Nick's answers with bated breath, but his answers were all about being his sex slave and fighting the forces of the Dark One. I agree to the terms of Nick's dominance over me. In his mind, this meant we were married. I own you now, would become his refrain. He said that one day soon he'd take my virginity from me because that's what dominants do. I invested a lot of time and energy in capturing his acceptance and what I thought was love, while he captured my mind. He would say things like, I'm so proud of you if I rubbed the right amount of barbecue sauce or ketchup against my naked body in the bathtub. You have so much potential, Gypsy, he'd say. If I was good at humiliating myself for his pleasure, he'd tell me he'd love me and he believed in me. Other times he'd say I needed bigger boobs or I wasn't dirty or nasty enough. Nick introduced the violence, the schmurders, the blood, the carvings, the brutal grape fantasies, and I was so afraid of losing his validation, I ignored his ex-girlfriend's Facebook message warning me that he was controlling and not all there. No, she isn't a true submissive at all. I mean, I don't know anything about BDSM, but I think that she obviously had this fantasy that she wanted to play out, and she needed to feel like she was in control of something or someone, and he just happened to be um, very submissive to her, whereas maybe these other three men that she was talking to, maybe they weren't as trusting to allow her to take the lead. What girl wants to see their ex happy? Nick rationalized when I told him his ex messaged me. Now, I have a feeling that she was the one who was reaching out to Nicholas's ex-girlfriend. I don't think his ex-girlfriend reached out to Gypsy at all. She's very jealous, like the jealous type. So I can see her asking for the girl's name, her Facebook information, and reaching out to her to try to like talk trash to her and to like start something with her. It wasn't until he told me that upon our daughter's 13th birthday, he would take her virginity that I thought he'd crossed the creepy line. I broke up with him, but like a good submissive, I accepted his apologies and returned to our status quo, the same way I accepted my mother's non apologies. The end game was to live a life together and to finally be together, and the ideas of how I wanted to be treated and how he wanted to treat me were different. We'd argue a lot about this. Why can't we have a normal life? I'd say, my begging indirectly, feeding into his dominance, like the people on Malcolm in the Middle. Why can't we have that family? He didn't want an American sitcom kind of life. I'm not that kind of person, he responded, firm on the act he wouldn't change, and that people don't change. You must not really love me if you want to change me. We would go back and forth on the matter of shifting our relationship from dominant and submissive to an American kind of life. We threatened breaking up with each other, which triggered an anxiety of being abandoned, which is something I still grapple with today. Our fights would shine a light on my feelings of unworthiness, which only made me sabotage the relationship even more. He'd do the same, and he'd continue his threats to leave me, and the cycle would continue. Finally, I'd beg him not to leave me and cave in to do whatever he wanted me to do. I feel really bad for Nicholas because that chapter does not paint him in a very good light. And if people didn't know like who he was as a person, they would believe this bullshit that she's spewing about who he is. So I feel really bad for him. And I hope that he takes the time to set the record straight for himself because this is unfair to him. It's unfair to everyone who she has villainized throughout the years that she's been in the public. It's unfair to her mother. It's unfair to Dan. It's unfair to Nicholas. It's unfair to Ryan. It's unfair to everyone that she continues to villainize and portray herself as the victim of everyone else around her. And it's kind of like it if you're saying that everyone else is the problem, it's time to take a look at yourself and figure out why you believe that everyone else is the problem around you versus yourself. Because at this point, like, how much longer is she going to go and continue to throw stones in everybody else's way, blaming everyone else? Yeah, it was popular at the time. I never even watched that movie. And from what I hear, 50 Shades of Grey oh my gosh, you guys, we're up to 11,000 likes. I love you. 50 Shades of Grey was kind of like very mild in comparison to what BDSM actually is. I don't know. I don't know anything about that world, but from what I hear, it's it's mild. My copper tin that I put water in, it supposedly filters the water better than, like a Brita filter or whatever. Flynn, 50 Shades of Contradiction. That's a good one. That's good. There's Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to me read this book. I love you all so much. The support just means so much to me. Okay, this is chapter 11, and this is the chapter in which she is talking about the movie theater. So we've heard several stories about the movie theater. So if you hear anything that is contradicting in the book from what you've heard before, don't hesitate to type it in the comments. Thank you so much for the gift. Don't hesitate to type it in the comments because I'm very curious to see like the contradictions and that sort of thing. I'm on chapter 11, just me. That hat is so cute. That was too funny. Right, Buffy? It was nothing compared to it. Okay, movie theater. Sorry, I should have popped some popcorn or something. Nick and I wanted to be together, and we both wanted me out of my mother's grip. He could protect me by taking me away, by moving me to Wisconsin with him, and by sharing a life with me. So we talked about the options we could exercise to make that happen as we tried to manipulate the mangled parts of my life into a more pleasant shape. Excuse me. We didn't have a master plan. I'm sorry. It wasn't anything like that, like planning a jewelry heist with several plots to run throughs. Um, she was thinking about a lot of different criminal acts. I mean, here she's talking about a jewelry heist. Like, she had a lot of dangerous things in her mind. I had been a hopeless, sheltered girl who found hope in Nick and then lost that hope all over again when my mother's physical abuse reinforced the electric fence that she had activated after the Dan debacle. She's acting like she was a dog in a cage. Like, that had one of those e-fences around her house, and like she had some kind of uh, a collar around her neck that prevented her from being able to go outside the gates of control. Yeah, she was very, very she wanted to be very sexual with the people that were in her life. It's weird. It wasn't one discussion like, okay, how do we get rid of your mom? They were gradual conversations that were baked into an elaborate fantasy world Nick created. He shared with me that he got sexually aroused when he fantasized about schmurdering and then graping his ex-girlfriend. But our plot was more reminiscent of a soap opera. So again, here she says that he got aroused whenever he fantasized about unaliving and then graping. I think that that's Gypsy. I think she got aroused by the thought of these things, not him. I got it, I said to Nick, brainstorming an idea for one option. Again, this is my opinion. My opinion. You come visit me in the middle of the night, and when Mama's asleep, I'll wheel down the wheelchair ramp, and you and I will sneak to the backyard. We'll have schmecks, and you will get me pregnant, and then Mama will have to let me be with you. As the father, she will have to accept you. I shoplifted prenatal pills and a pregnancy test and posted it to my secret Facebook page where I was friends with Nick's mom. She called Nick. What is Gypsy doing? Okay, that's not a good plan. Nick said his mother was not pleased and warned him not to get me pregnant. It is eerie how this story is almost exactly the same as when Grandma Sharon warned my dad against Mama trying to get pregnant because of the library book. Hold on, I see a comment that's hidden, so let me. Yeah, she did, Buffy. She did. She got aroused by those dangerous things. I think that that's weird. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that people would that people had fantasies like that where you're like holding a knife to somebody's I don't know. That's weird. But there's a lot of weird people out there, so I guess everyone has their kink. I'm not sure why I thought Mama would be on board with a pregnancy when she accused me of having sex with Dan, even though I swore up and down nothing happened. She said she'd make me have an abortion if I was pregnant. Nick was right. Pregnancy wouldn't work. I really had to dig in to try to understand what my mother's big issue was about me dating. Her control and abuse had moved outside the realm of my health and was more preoccupied with my social interactions, especially romantic ones, which my maturing body and mind naturally craved. Was she afraid of being abandoned by me? That I'd meet a man, make a family, and forget all about her? Was it that she was jealous of me or felt left out of my life in some way? My thought process was so desperate. I thought I could figure out a way to placate her emotional needs. There would be a way for me to create a win-win situation, one in which I was happy with Nick and my mother could feel like an active participant in my life. I continued brainstorming with Nick. coming up with what I thought was the best idea yet. What if we accidentally meet up and pretend we just met and Mama could see that we really like each other and let us date? Like, pretend we are strangers who bump into each other like love at first sight, he asked. Exactly. Mama and I go to the movies a lot, so maybe you could come down when we see the new Cinderella movie, and then you are just there in the lobby and we accidentally meet, like bump into each other. This is very elementary. Like, y'all are in your 20s. Now, I know both of them are mentally handicapped. So I can see where this, because they both have minds of a teenager, I can see where this sounds like a good idea, but they were 24, 26. This sounds very high, like middle school. You know what I mean? This meet cute idea made sense to me at the time. Mama wanted to be a part of my life and wouldn't let go, so what if I baked her into the origin story? The first time Nick and I met, Mama was there, I would say, at our wedding, with Mama by my side, happily taking credit for my happiness. I was delusional to think Mama would find peace in knowing she was a part of us and not feel alienated or threatened in any way. But I figured our love story would be her story as much as it was mine. She could own it. We shared everything after all. So this had to be the answer. I had to share my experience with Nick with her to appeal to her ego so she wouldn't feel excluded or worse, replaced. At least that's what I thought she needed in order to let me date him. I was trying to get her approval in my life in any way, just so Nick could somehow be integrated. It was when she felt excluded or she felt I was leaving her that she'd unleash her wrath. Nick made an addition to our meet cute plan. I will take your virginity at the movie theater, he said with lust in his voice, and you will forever be mine. I will own you. At this point, I wanted to give him my virginity, mostly because I wanted that part over with. I thought this was my one and only chance, especially as I was finally getting to be with Nick in real life. This is something we have to do now, I thought. We promised we would figure out a way for us to meet in the bathroom during the movie. Again, here with the dates. She remembers this date very vividly. She says, so on March 12th, 2015, I dressed up in a Cinderella costume dress and tiara to accompany Mama to the live action film version of Cinderella. We were regulars at the movie theater in Springfield and were greeted by the staff with the unusual enthusiasm they'd shown for us ever since we moved to town. It was like any other day, except I had cramps from being on my period. I double dosed on Oxy to help with the cramps. My diaper felt particularly sticky against the flammable polyester material of my princess dress. The damn diaper was riding up me, and it felt like I already needed to change. I looked around eagerly, wishing I didn't feel so gross, because my Prince Charming was literally going to appear as planned any second. I smiled and wheeled slowly through the lobby. In seconds, my life would change forever. Huh? Dressing like an idiot. The book is nauseating. I'm just grossed out. She's talking about being on her period, wearing a diaper to the movie theater, and him taking her virginity while she's on her period. Like, I'm sorry, that's disturbing. Yeah, that's what she's saying, Amelia. She's saying that she and him went into the bathroom while she was on her period and what she was wearing a diaper and had sex. Let me close my door because my daughter's out there and I don't want her listening to this. This is inappropriate. Kimber, here. Come on. Lay down. Good boy. Lay down. Good boy. As promised, Nick appeared. He was a terrible actor, and he awkwardly came over and said hello to me. Looking back now, I could see how transparent the whole scene was, and my mother didn't buy any of it. I wanted to sit with Nick, and she demanded I stay with her. She thought he was creepy. Why is there this single adult man at a kids' movie? She had already figured Dan to be a PDF file. While considering both our histories with Claude, I don't think Mama's concern about Nick was far off. I told her I was going to the bathroom, so she let me go alone. Looking back now, I don't know why she did. Was it a trap? Did she want to give me enough rope to hang myself? If she didn't let me go, she wouldn't have been able to punish me, or did she really let her guard down? After Dan, I didn't think it was possible. Prepared to be transformed by my first sexual encounter, I wheeled into the men's bathroom and Nick fell in line. You hear that? Nick fell in line. He fell in line, which means that she was dominant over him, not the other way around. Yeah, he did. You're right, Buffy. He did. He said that he had a problem having an erection both times that they supposedly had relations. He said that he had a hard time getting an erection when they were in the movie theater. And then, whenever, like, after the crime, he said that he couldn't ejaculate. Following me into the wheelchair-accessible stall. If my mother came looking for me, I knew she wouldn't go into the men's room. It was exciting. After almost a year of a virtual relationship, to be in the flesh together felt like a dream. We kissed awkwardly, not too slow because we knew we had to be quick. As his hands glided down and underneath my princess dress, I winced when his hand froze. I sensed his brain trying to register what his fingers were feeling as he inched them down in the front of not sexy underwear but a diaper. And the moisture he felt was not due to the heat he was producing inside me, but the blood. Nick went limp. He saw my diaper and the blood, and without the need for my explanation, he put two and two together. I tried to touch him to help him regain an erection, but there was nothing I could do to help him unsee a grown woman bleeding into a diaper. In the name of his owning me, Nick pressed his softness against me and tried to stuff himself inside me, unable to penetrate me with his power. I wheeled out of the stall, technically still a virgin. Nick said we were married now because of what we just did. According to him, that was sex. The credits began to roll when Mama found me where I had been seated with Nick, and she looked blankly at me. Nick tried to make small talk, but She just walked out of the movie theater and then out the front doors of the IMAX building. I better go, I said to Nick, a nervousness rising within me. He escorted me to the front doors and he told me he'd call me when he got on the bus back to Wisconsin. Nick's mother had bought him the bus ticket since he didn't work. I thought she bought him the bus ticket. So is she lying again here? I'm pretty sure she said she bought him the bus ticket. He told me he used to have a job being the guy who held up the Little Caesar sign on a major roads, but that didn't work out. He spent a lot of time hanging out in the McDonald's that was within walking distance of his house since they had Wi-Fi there. I didn't know then that Nick had been arrested for disorderly conduct for masturbating to porn at the McDonald's. This is a lie. We all know this is a lie. Nick was not arrested for playing with himself at the McDonald's, and he admitted that he was talking to Gypsy when all of this happened. So she's trying to make it sound like she had no idea what was going on, but I believe this was her plan and she wanted to see if he would do something inappropriate because she asked him to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that this was a setup, because she wanted to see how far he would go, even though he knew that it was wrong. Right, Kelly. She said that she bought him the ticket every time. So it's like she's trying to change details to make it seem um like she wasn't as involved financially with him, and that he was able to kind of figure out things on his own, and that his mom liked her or whatever. I don't know what she's trying to do with this. To be honest, even if he hadn't told me, it probably wouldn't have stopped me from dating him. Mama was not a fast walker, but on this day, she was way ahead of me already in the parking lot. I was spinning the wheels of my chair, calling her name. Mama, wait for me. She just proceeded to get in the van, pretending not to hear me, dismissing me completely. I knew she wouldn't leave me there. It would be too visible, too high profile. So I met her at the van, transferred myself into the passenger seat, while without words, she folded up my chair, opened the back van door, and took some of her anger out on the wheelchair, flinging it inside. What were you thinking? She said. I could tell she was seething because she was sighing to catch air, breathing erratic and heavy. Are you trying to kill me? You know I am not well, Gypsy. I swear if I die, it will be you who killed me. You already tried to shoot me once. All I could think of as she spoke so hatefully to me was that I wanted to get high. I didn't purposely try to kill you with the BBs, Mama. I was just trying to leave. Any hope I had of being with Nick had been sucked out of me along with my naivete. No plans could save me now. I didn't know what my fate would be with Nick being far away. Again, Mama more pissed off than ever. I closed my eyes and tried to calm myself with the thought of crushing Mama's oxy and injecting the pain-killing powder right into my feeding tube. Instant relief. When we got back home, she took the handles of my wheelchair, signaling that she would be pushing me to my destination. Her cadence was pointed and determined as she marched me not up to the wheelchair ramp, but to the front door, but around the house and into the backyard. I think this is where she's saying that her mom put her in the shed. We're going to find out. Mama, what's going on? I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. I'll be good. Save it, she said. You're a liar, and you took me for a fool. You think you're going to run off with this boy now? Whore. Fool me once. So she walked us past the bald patch of grass where the cursed mason jar was buried and brought me to the shed where we were first given the Habitat for Humanity house. The program workers found out that I wished for a playhouse. So they painted the shed the same color pink as our house and made it look like a miniature version, a playhouse just for Gypsy. Except I never went out there. For one thing, my mother never let me outside. There was never a moment during the day when Mama would say, "Let's go outside and get some sun on our face." Never. Second, I'm afraid of bugs, and bugs were everywhere in the shed. The shed might have looked like a mini house, but the inside floor was made of dirt, where slugs and fire ants and, worse, spiders lived. We all saw the crime scene photos. She's saying that that shed in the back was pink and that the floors were not done and it was dirt. That's that's not what that shed looked like. It was literally like it was a floor. It was an actual floor. Yeah, it was a floor. And the and the shed was blue. It wasn't pink, it was blue. It was painted blue. As dusk blanketed the sky, the temperature dipped, and I officially freaked out. I asked her cautiously if walking through a minefield. "Mama, what are we doing?" "You can't be trusted," she said, her mind well made up. "Get in." "No, stop, Mama." My sobs failed to penetrate. Bring her back to this world. She was somewhere else now, riding a wave of hatred and jealousy, fear and recklessness. She pushed me into the shed. "Get out of the chair," she said. Even alone in the dark out back, where nobody would think to look for us, I transferred myself out of the chair as if my legs really didn't work. I placed myself on the ground among the big black garbage bags full of shoplifted garments, tears spilling onto the dirt. The dirt. This girl can't remember anything. My stomach turns over when I play this moment back in my mind. I could have used the chair to bust right past her. She clearly didn't want to leave me alone in the shed with my wheelchair in case I'd use it as a tool to break down the door. But I wonder if I would have done that at all. I look back at the little girl whose mind had been bent by a lifetime of indoctrination and see she wouldn't have fought back. Or maybe I was just too close to the cursed mason jar where the spell still held power. Gypsy will never be happy. She will never be free. She took an about face and walked out, slamming the shed door behind her. You guys know that that shed had a window in it. It literally had a window in the shed. I'm sorry. We gotta look this up because this is just bullshit. Like, I don't understand how she is able to get away with saying this shit because it's clearly fabricated. I believe I still have the crime scene photos somewhere. Mm, hold on, those are screenshots. Maybe I need to go to Facebook. Because I know that they're in these groups that I'm in, but I'm almost 100% positive that there was, yeah, I saw that, Shaka. I'm almost 100% positive that that the shed had a window in it. Oh, this I know there's a way for me to search. Hold on. Mm, I might have to look them up later. Yeah, I might have to look them up later. Unless somebody else knows exactly where they are and can like send it to me really quick. I'm pretty sure that I'm almost 100% positive that the shed had. Yes, if you could send the picture, that would be great because I can open it up on my iPad. I know that it had a window in it and the floor was like done. It was a floor. Flynn, if you could send it to either my email or, yeah, my email might be the best way. Here, I think I can type you my email. Let me type it. I thought I had those crime scene photos saved, but maybe I didn't. That's crazy. The way that she just lies, you guys, I think it's a little disturbing how much she lies. Okay. Mama, don't just leave me in here, Mama. The spiders, the angry clanks of the padlock were her only response. I was hungry, thirsty, freezing, scared, and the most desperate I had ever felt, and her pills were all the way back in the house. Did Nick get on the bus okay? Is he asleep on the back of a comfortable couch bus? His head held up by a window. Was he on a window or an aisle seat? There was so much I didn't know about him that now I'd never find out. I tried to focus on Nick to keep my fear of the spiders at bay. If I fall asleep, will they crawl in my ears and up my nose? Without my CPAP machine, will they creep into my mouth and lay eggs? I had to stay awake and keep watch for Mama. Maybe she would miss me alone in her bed and come get me. I tried to send her telepathic messages. She always said we were connected in a special way. Plus, she had powers. Come get me, come get me, come get me. After ripping open one of the bags to find warm clothes, I finally fell asleep. My telepathic messages worked, but not in the way I had expected. I had a dream in which Dad and Christy were cooking in the kitchen of the little blue house. I was my age, but my body was childlike. I sat on the floor teasing my two cats with feather toys, but they turned into my brother and sister Dylan and Mia. I was so happy, but so mad at them at the same time. Happy because I was no longer alone, but mad because my dad had left me for them. Then suddenly I'm at a police station with these really nice people wrapping blankets around me. Christy and Dad were there talking to a detective. Christy was crying, even though she looked happy. The detective and these nice people with blankets met with all of us in a room. They were introducing me to Christy and Dan because in my dream I didn't know them. even though I did. It's hard to explain. Gypsy, do you know where you are? Hold on, I'm trying to find the email. If it hasn't already come yet, it probably hasn't. That's fine if it hasn't. Okay, I'll just leave that open. Gypsy, do you know where you are? The detective asked. Where's Mama? I asked, scanning the room of adults who looked at me like I was about to break. They proceeded to tell me that Christy and Dan had been looking for me all of my life. Gypsy, we have to let you know that Dee Dee is not your real mother. Christy is. The police station transformed into an open park. Now I was skipping around Disney World. My long curly hair danced around my waist as I held the hands of Christy and Dad, flanked by them. I felt a strong sense of relief that my life was not what it seemed, and finally someone did come get me. When I woke up, I was disoriented. I looked around the shed and could see some sunlight peeking in. My fingers and toes were numb, and I must have slept hard because I had drool on my cheek. She left me there all night, alone, scared. Depression drenched me as I reconciled the fact that my dream wasn't real, that the pure joy I felt being reunited with my real family was as fictional as the life I lived with my mother. Mama didn't come to let me out of the shed until about noon. She wasn't an early riser by habit, so why would she make a concession that day? When she opened the door, her body language exuded the power of a victor over her spoils. I thought that upon seeing her I'd be more afraid or angry or despondent, but I felt nothing, like all my emotions had been zapped out of me in a sterile shock treatment room. Back to the house, she said, her hands gripping the portable wheelchair. I transferred myself from the ground to the chair, and she wheeled me back to the house. We had an appointment with the ENT I couldn't miss. This girl has a very good imagination. That's all I'm going to say. Very good imagination. This chapter 12 says, intermission, recovering my medical records. This ought to be interesting. She really is. Right, Jody. Why didn't she scream? Yeah, you're late back to Bushbook, but you can always watch the replay. Lori, right. There were no black trash bags in that fucking room, period. Like, none. Thank you for the follow. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. We're gonna read this and let's see. Since I guess we don't really know a whole lot about what she knows about her medical records because she has not been very vocal about her medical records. So we don't like, yeah, you're right, JFK Annie. She was the one who was doing all the writing for the scripts and whatever. She hasn't been very vocal about what's in her medical records. There was that one picture where she was like in the center and she had a bunch of papers sitting around her. We all saw that photo, but as far as like what's in the medical records, she claims that she still doesn't know very much about her medical history. And I think that that's a lie. So I think that everything that comes out of her mouth is a lie. But I guess we're going to see and read what she says about her medical records. Disclosure will bring closure. That's what I thought whenever I imagined the day when I would finally have all my medical records in my hand. And that day arrived in 2024, about 3 weeks after my release from Chillicothe Correctional Center. All the secret facts about my medical history were sprawled out on my living room floor in the apartment of my husband Ryan and I moved into. I decided I'd really dive in once Ryan went back to work after the long holiday break. Sending him off to the school where he teaches somehow makes me feel like a wife, like we are really married. I think it's because him leaving also implies he must return to me. He doesn't have to return if he doesn't want to, and when he does, it reinforces the commitment and loyalty of marriage. I am worth being returned to. Looking through these medical records, I don't see myself as a person who really has much value to anyone. As I thumb through dozens of manila file folders dated all the way back to 2000, so much anger against the medical establishment builds in me, more than I anticipated. Binders and a box that marked the documentation of my medical mayhem. Sorry, my earpod just went out. Can you hear me okay, or should I put it back on? Let me know, because I can always put it back on if you're having a hard time hearing me. 5 binders and a box that mark the documentation of my medical mayhem. It's like my anatomy has been shoved into a file cabinet or something. I don't understand most of the language the so-called medical professionals use to describe me in these hundreds of pages. I see lots of jargon and abbreviation and numbers, esoteric codes that for anyone who cared to notice, spell out in plain sight, there's nothing here. The least someone had to do to flag my case was to look at my name and date of birth. My name, depending on the year or the specialist, was spelled differently. Sometimes my first name was hyphenated. Other times my last name was spelled incorrectly with an E at the end. Blanchard, my mother's attempt to separate herself from my father even further than she could geographically. Or was it that she was running from other things like prior legal offenses? Anyone who cared to notice could have seen these inconsistencies, but nobody cared enough. In addition to telling me things I already knew about certain diagnoses like sleep apnea, allergies, asthma, epilepsy, muscular dystrophy, leukemia, the medical records provided me with a map and a timeline, not only of when my mother's Munchausen began to consume her, but of how she trapped herself within it like a spider stuck in its own web. Seeing the dates of the medical records reminded me of how much we moved around. I see the names of certain doctors and the tests and the procedures I underwent, and I'm instantly transported back to the various towns and cities we lived in between 1999 and 2015. But I was supposedly sick before that, as an infant. Mama insisted that I stop breathing in my sleep. She told me stories about how she was so nervous I would die, especially at nighttime, that she would lay me atop her chest while I was asleep so she could watch my little body rise and fall. Of course, my rotten father was nowhere to be found, she reminded me. She was the one who loved me enough to forego her own sleep, an exhausted new mother keeping watch over her baby bird. I didn't find out until recently that once my mother told my father of my sleep apnea diagnosis, he decided to give it another try with Dee Dee. It's just a theory, but could my supposed sleep apnea had been an attention grab to get my dad back? If so, it worked. Dad did find us a rental house and we moved back in with Mama. Living in a loveless marriage and working a job that kept him away for 3 weeks out of the month, Dad finally decided to break up for good. They divorced in 1992, just a year after my birth.
Once my parents were finally over, Dad and Christy got engaged and then married, and my sleep apnea escalated to the point that I required an infant CPAP machine. The estrangement between my dad and me began around this time, when the narrative my mother preferred was that my father was an abusive asshole who tried to throw me across the room in a drunken stupor and then left to have his new family that he could physically and emotionally abuse. What kind of man leaves his wife and sickly infant? Mama swore that if I had been a boy, Dad wouldn't have left. For a long time, I felt bad for being the reason my father left Mama. There was nothing I could do to make myself be a boy or to make myself unsick. Thank God I had Mama there to save me. I didn't see medical records of me visiting a doctor for sleep apnea in infanthood, or a prescription or records of where Mama got the CPAP machine. For all I know, she bought it at a garage sale or paid for it out of pocket at a medical supply store. That's not how medical supplies work. I mean, it's just not. You can't just go to a medical supply store and buy a CPAP machine. Like, that shit has to be prescribed to you. Or worse, she stole it from the hospital where she had worked. This girl just loves to trash her mom in any way she can. My medical records double as my mother's resume. Being my caregiver was her primary profession, one that she figured out how to monetize. I'm in awe of the lengths my mother went to in her efforts to convince doctors to test me for invisible symptoms. These documents I now have are reminders of prodding and poking, but it's the fear that I feel all over again. The fear of a confused little girl in the face of a constant barrage of unknown things that would happen to me. I was so scared all the time. It creeped me out to undergo numerous sleep studies, which required me to be watched. I wanted to sleep with my mother like we always did, instead of hooked up to machines like a rat in a lab. I was scared when they told me they would cut my abdomen so my mother could nourish me with a feeding tube. The loud darkness of the MRI machines, the gross dyes I had to have injected by needle, the looming threat of a cancer relapse. The records don't account for the unnecessary anxiety I endured for no good reason at all. I don't see scared little girl written anywhere in the anecdotal pages on the tops or the bottoms. Instead, I find one note: our favorite mother-daughter patient. I'm enraged. It's like the daughter couldn't even let me have my own patient identity. He just wrapped us into one warped person. What does having a favorite have to do with my fake kidney disease you are testing for? I see notations about the blood traces in my urine and the dye I drank to test my kidneys for dysfunction. I recall vividly that day in the bathroom of the doctor's office when Mama pricked her finger with a safety pin and let the drop of blood spill into the white paper cup I had just peed in. If there is anyone in the chat that has any idea why she would say that her mother pricked her finger so that blood dropped in the urine, please help me understand what that is supposed to be about. Is she trying to say that her mom purposely faked this so that the test would come out that she had blood in her urine? Help me understand this, because I'm not getting it. Like, my head hurts. I'm trying to think about what this could mean. That's what she's saying, Kim? Okay. And would that work? Like, literally, would that work? Would that work? Because I've had blood in my urine before. Like, when I had, like, a urinary tract infection or something like that. And it didn't look like a prick of blood fell in. It was almost like hazy when you urinated out. Thank you. Okay. Because I didn't think that would work. The lengths that this girl will go to, that's all I'm going to say. The lengths that this girl will go to try to trash her own mother is crazy. I don't even like my mom, but I don't talk negatively about her every chance I get. I mean, she just throws her mother under the bus at any opportunity. And I can't understand for the life of me why the writers would put that in the book. Did they not question anything that she said in this book? They were just like, okay, yeah, we're going to write it all down. We're not even going to question what you're saying and if that's accurate and if that could even possibly be true or not. We're just going to write it all down, and we're going to print it, and we're going to hope people pay for it, and we're going to hope people believe what you're saying. I mean, it's dumb. My medical records double as my mother's resume. Oh, I'm sorry. I already read that. I was so scared all the time. I already read that part too. Sorry. The tests, of course, all came back negative. Even with the good news of healthy kidneys, my mother found a way to gain the worry and follow-up of the doctors. I had a severe allergic reaction to the kidney dye. The records indicate my mother reported this to them, and they had not actually witnessed an adverse reaction. What she falsified became fact with just a pen stroke. These medical records reveal an arsenal of weapons my mother was capable of wielding. Had I witnessed a ruthlessness in my mother when I was smaller, when I saw her putting Roundup weed killer in her stepmother Laura's food? Was that why we suddenly left town to New Orleans to live in the Ronald McDonald House, where we spent several weeks rent-free, and then to Slidell, Louisiana, and then back to our Section 8 project housing in Thibodaux? Bouncing around was a way to ensure people would lose track of us, lose track of the lies, and to distance us from any chance of running into a competent human being that would call her out on her deceit. As we call Gypsy out on her deceit, she has the audacity to say that in this book. Like, girl, she is number one, hates being called out for her lies, and then has the audacity to say that they couldn't run into one competent person to call her mother out on her lies. Lord bless us. These medical records are like a montage of my mother's disease I see as I review them. That she focused on asserting symptoms nobody could perceive, so she couldn't be contradicted. Warning signs that were not obvious. Gypsy Rose has multiple medical concerns as outlined by her mother, one record states. She had to find things wrong with me that would require at least an initial examination, creating a condition for doctors to figure that they needed to take her word for it. The devastation of Hurricane Katrina helped the doctors to do exactly that. Katrina helped my mother prey on the empathy of others, an opportunity for monetizing my medical history. With all my medical records supposedly lost in Katrina, we moved to Missouri in 2005. Refugees and victims of a storm that wiped out an entire city. I was confused but not yet suspicious when Mama's storytelling escalated into a false backstory. We suddenly had dead relatives. We'd lost our home and all our possessions in Katrina. And Mama had once been a nurse. Welcomed and cared for by the sweet community of Springfield, we became local celebrities. Recipients of the compassion of its people, where we were gifted a Habitat for Humanity house on Volunteer Way. where we lived for 10 years until the night of the murder. It's funny that she remembers when they moved, she remembers how long they lived there, but doesn't know how old she is. Things to think about. Like, you live there for 10 years and you don't know how old you are. And then earlier in the book, she mentioned that she had gotten her period before Katrina at age 13. Just want to throw that out there too. I notice the pattern now in these records, the ripple effects of each of my diseases and disorders, the sleep apnea, the seizures that led to my mental retardation, all invisible and unwitnessed, requiring no interrogation. The only true medical issue I had was a lazy eye. Okay, here she is trying to deny all of the claims about, her chromosome disorder, and that none of what she had going on had anything to do with her chromosome disorder. The only true medical issue I had was a lazy eye, which was operated on. It looks like one way she unraveled the medical issues was to pick something like a seizure and then look into the plethora of effects that could happen to the body in the aftermath and continue from there. Another way she justified my illnesses was by claiming I had a disease-inducing chromosomal defect. Interestingly, I found a chromosome test in one of the boxes of my medical files. It was ordered in 2012 when I was already 21 years old, after a doctor could not find anything wrong with me that would explain the cornucopia of illnesses my mother claimed I had. His last-ditch effort was to consider if my ailments were due to a rare chromosomal defect. To my surprise, the results on this test indicate that I do have what is known as microdeletion 1q21.1, which is a chromosomal change in which a small piece of chromosome 1 is deleted in each cell. This was news to me! Exclamation point. Flustered, I turned to the internet to sleuth around to see what this actually means. When I discovered is staggering. The microdeletion is known to increase the risk of delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems. Wow. What a coincidence. Every illness my mother claimed I had fallen beneath all of these umbrellas, except I didn't actually have a single one. This girl is in denial. In denial. Let's go over the deletion effects. Delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems. Pretty much everything that she had falls under those illnesses, correct? Because seizures, eye problems, feeding tube, literally everything falls under that. Everything. Was this diagnosis the smoking gun my mother used to scam the medical world? Just when I thought I figured out the mystery, I realized how that theory just can't be true. Because I had already lived with these supposed illnesses for 2 decades by the time of these test results. How does her having the illness for over 2 decades mean that it's not true? That sounds to me like it's further evidence that it is true. Because it didn't just disappear. Like, you still have it. That to me sounds like everything that happened was because of this and because you still have this. It's not something that disappears. Exploring my medical records was supposed to demystify me, not baffle me even more. Now I had more questions than I'd had before. Does there somewhere exist a similar chromosome test, one given to me when I was born? Was this one medical issue I had that was true? Did my mother then turn that one truth into 1,000 lies? The rest of my files indicate no abnormalities. So, regardless of the actual microdeletion, I had grown up unscathed by it. She's such a liar. Literally, her medical records are filled with issues that go back and correlate to the microdeletion. Literally everything that she had, the teeth, the asthma, the seizures, the small in stature, the head, the eyes, the buck teeth, the salivary glands, like everything goes back to the chromosomal defect. She's very persistent on and adamant on wanting the world to think that she has this, but that nothing in her medical records is because of it. That it's all fabricated. Everything that's in her medical records is a lie and false. And that's just crazy. Like, that's crazy talk. They say the best liars use a hint of truth. Either my mother knew I had this condition before the 2012 test, researched the potential outcomes and ran with them, or this one time the disorder she claimed for me turned out to be real, though without real symptoms. So whenever Rod was talking in one of the documentaries, I can't remember which one, he said that Dee Dee, that the doctors had done some tests and that they had found out that Gypsy had a chromosome disorder. This was before 2012, he said, because he was saying that had happened whenever Gypsy was younger. So I'm wondering if those tests had gotten somehow lost, even though Dee Dee knew that that's where it came from. Those tests may have somehow gotten lost. So then they decided to test again in 2012. And that's where, they found that everything was correlating back to the chromosome disorder. Because the way that, like I said, the way that Rod said it, he said it like this was something that she found out when Gypsy was really little, like before the eye surgery type shit. This was a rabbit hole my brain went down and I still can't climb out of. Different scenarios kept me up at night. Did she simply read too many baby books when she was pregnant with me and feared all the potential negative outcomes? Did she know she had the same genetic abnormality and presumptuously tell people she had passed it on to me? And then there's pictures of Gypsy and Dee Dee. So I'm going to get a little bit closer so we can look at some of these pictures. And you can look in that bottom photo and you can see that Gypsy definitely looks like there's something wrong with her eyes. Yes, Amelia, Gypsy was a willing participant in this scam. Oh, what's this up at the top? Oh, child support payments, like that fucking matters. Just because he paid child support doesn't make him a good father. He's still a piece of shit, in my opinion. And that's Gypsy at around 1 year old down here in this picture. And you can see her eyes are fucked up in that picture. They're including all of these pictures and certificates, all this bullshit from when she was in prison in this chapter about the medical records to distract you from the chromosomal disorder. They want to try to just distract you from the chromosomal disorder. Nonetheless, she had used this chromosomal microdeletion, as benign as it was, to convince everyone that I had had the mind of a 7-year-old. Even though back in Golden Meadow, she said my low IQ was because of the epileptic seizures that I never had. I think it's interesting that even after they show all of those pictures where you can clearly see that there's something wrong with her, like visibly wrong with her, she's going to still try to deny it. The lengths that this woman will go to continue the lie, is wild to me. It's absolutely wild. She said that my salivary glands were contributing to my swallowing problems. But then she also said that my swallowing had been affected by the seizures. Later, with an ENT specialist, she positioned that the issues with my glands and my high-pitched voice could be related. And if you continue to go back and you look at the symptoms of the chromosomal disorder, you will see that the high-pitched voice is also correlated to the chromosomal disorder. It's like everything is explained by the chromosomal disorder, but Gypsy does not want to believe that that's why. She wants to continue to believe that her mother, or portray to the world that she believes that her mother did all of this out of spite, out of vindictiveness, because she was mentally ill, when that's just not the truth. Later, with my ENT specialist, she positioned that the issues with my glands and my high-pitched voice could be related. An exploratory surgery to cut my larynx was scheduled. However, when she did the Dr. Phil interview, she said that it was a surgery coming up that she had had over 20 times before. So was it exploratory, or was it something that you had had 20 times prior? Because they both can't be true. The most dramatic inconsistency had to do with the use of my wheelchair. Despite the fact that Mama told some people I needed a wheelchair because of a car accident and others that my immobility was due to muscular dystrophy, I found a medical record from a cardiologist that stated she is quadriplegic from birth and is in a wheelchair. What does quadriplegic mean? I hate to sound stupid, but I don't know what that means. So if anybody can put it in the chat, please let me know. And I'm not saying that to be like a smartass. Like, I really don't know what that means. And I was stunned that not only Mama passed me off as not being able to walk, but she was audacious enough to claim I was paralyzed from the neck down, and still nobody questioned her. I don't believe that that's true. Paralyzed from the chest down. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would really like that. Banana DW, I would really like that for a doctor to literally, somebody who is not paid by Lifetime, somebody who is not paid by Gypsy, to look at all of her medical records and actually go on record to say what is going on. Like an outside source who is not paid by the family to let everybody know like what actually is what. Because I think that the doctors that were interviewed for all of the documentaries were clearly paid to spin a certain narrative in the documentaries. Oh, look, she goes over that. Okay, hold on. On the same document, my date of birth is recorded as being July 1994. 3 years later than my real birth date. I looked up the definition of quadriplegic and I was stunned that not only did Mama pass me off as not being able to walk, but was audacious enough to claim I was paralyzed from the neck down. Still, nobody questioned her. Making up a backstory was part of her process. She told stories, creating devastation where there was none. Sounds like Gypsy. Both my grandfathers had died of arterial disease. I had cancer. My father had been abusive to us. Her lies estranged me from my father, brother, and sister, and from the entire Petrie family. She even went as far as taking a baby picture of my brother Dylan, Dad, and Christy's firstborn and showing it to people as her dead baby boy, who she said was with my father before I was born. She used drugs to manipulate my body to mimic certain symptoms. Before the sleep studies, she would mix Xanax with Benadryl. Could that combination have affected my breathing? She drugged me with narcotics to make me go limp and cause me brain fog. She put Orajel on my gums to make me drool so she'd have doctors believe my salivary glands were not working properly. Before doctor's appointments, she made me really sleepy with extra doses of Keppra, which treats seizures. My ability to take ownership of these medical records is empowering, but I am also hunting. I can't change the past or what has been done to me, but I do want to know concrete answers on why they took my teeth out. I never had any reasons given to me from a doctor nor from Mama. Being reminded of all the medications and the different procedures like going under anesthesia isn't giving me a clear, full explanation as to why they extracted all my teeth. All I've dug up is Mom reported tooth pain, which is bullshit because Katie Joy showed records where she had went in and like had cavities. Like she had cavities. She had poor oral health, and I'm pretty sure that the chromosomal defect also messes up your mouth. And if her salivary glands were producing a lot of saliva, that saliva buildup in your mouth probably also rotted her teeth. So it sounds to me like she's not wanting to believe that the chromosomal defect caused all her issues, but it sounds like she wants another explanation, even though the clear explanation is usually the correct one, but she just doesn't want to believe it. She wants to believe that her mother just did all these things for no good reason at all. Yeah, she drank Pepsi. And then she claims she sucked on a bottle until she was 24, although I don't believe that. But when you look at some of the photos, you can see that her teeth were really bucked. Like they hung out. So I wonder if some of that was because she sucked her thumb. I know we don't see any pictures of her sucking her thumb, but buck teeth usually happens from people who suck their thumbs. So it could be that she was a thumb sucker whenever she was smaller. I mean, I knew a girl who sucked her thumb until she was 15 years old. So it's not improbable to believe that she sucked her thumb and ate a lot of sugary shit and Pepsi and just didn't take care of her teeth. Because nobody is going to just remove your teeth for no reason. And she did have a separation in her front teeth too. Like there was a gap in between the two. I see the records from the food allergist noting how my mother was thorough and caring enough to bring in the food labels of ingredients and foods I supposedly had allergic reactions to. A donut, an oatmeal cookie, and a chocolate chip cookie, a Dove bar. All sweet shit. Notice that? Notice that she's mentioning here that she was eating donuts, oatmeal cookies, chocolate chip cookies, Dove bars, and you don't know why they extracted all your teeth? Bitch, you just told us. You just fucking told us why they extracted your teeth. My mother is on record saying that when I was fed rice products, oats, apples, or corn, I'd have a reaction. She has avoided milk, soy, and egg in the past, the records say. And of course she insisted I was allergic to sugar, even though she said I could eat some fruits which have sugar naturally in them. It's such a dumb claim. Still, it took years for a red flag to be waved and DFS called to no avail. I don't think that she was saying that she was allergic to sugar. I think she was obviously saying that she had allergic reactions after eating things like this. I watched a little bit of the documentary on Lifetime that we filmed while I was waiting to be released. And it was the first time I heard from a couple of doctors anything like, Gypsy, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I wish I would have acted. I feel like I failed you. But you know, I toyed with the idea of filing a medical malpractice lawsuit. I have all of this evidence of negligence. Really, though, I just want to focus on my future restorative surgeries. So if I sue anyone, it will be so they pay for things they did in the past that continue to cause me to suffer in the present. My teeth are what I want back. Absent some kind of compensation, I'd have to pay out of pocket to undo things that were done to me. I'm very much still paying for their mistakes. I'm not asking for millions of dollars. I'm just saying help me have enough money to pay for restorative surgery so that I can at least have a little normalcy back in my life. And last I checked, they can't give me back my salivary glands. Is she dry begging in her own fucking book? Are you serious right now? This girl is dry begging in her book. The scam continues. What could money possibly do to give her back her teeth? Somebody paid for her to get dentures. So what else do you want? I keep looking for where the doctors cross the point of no return, where my records take a wrong turn into the realm of becoming life-threatening to me. It was when they started moving beyond the testing and actually acted. When they started cutting and manipulating my body, altering it and changing its healthy form forever. The feeding tube. Supposedly I had a fear of eating, and that claim was enough to surgically insert a silicone tube into a 5-year-old. I don't believe that that's true. I remember looking at the medical records And it didn't necessarily say that she had a fear of food. It was of swallowing. She was having a hard time swallowing the food, and of course she wasn't gaining weight, and that was a concern for her mother. So it was in the medical records that her mother was concerned about her not being able to swallow, and it also said that Gypsy was refusing to eat. So a 5-year-old refusing to eat is pretty worrisome for a mother. So I don't think that they gave her the feeding tube on just the premise of, she's scared of food. That's not how shit works. She says, I don't recall being spoken to about this fear. Other explanations my mother gave to people regarding the tube included my cancer, an inability to swallow, and food allergies. She needed to control my nourishment to keep me safe. With every injection of Pedialyte, she chose the dosage and feeding times, and therefore she could control my weight. After all, a sick child isn't supposed to have meat on her bones. That feeding tube kept me connected to my mother the way an umbilical cord does. She could turn the food supply on or off whenever she wanted, like a human spigot. However, she told us earlier in the chapter that she was eating donuts, raisin cookies, and Dove bars, and this, that, and the other. So it's not like she wasn't being fed actual food. She was eating actual food, just unhealthy foods, and that's probably why her mom had to give her Pedialyte in the feeding tube, because she wasn't eating anything else that was actually healthy for her. Like, I never hear her eating carrots or green beans or lettuce or salads, like fruit. It's all sweet shit. You can't live on sugar. I spent my entire life without any bodily autonomy, but as much as the records I now rightfully have back in my possession make me sad and angry, I also feel empowerment and hope and peace. As I piece together my medical mystery, uncovering truths and details that my mother withheld from me, I'm going to stay steady on the path to the future I'm on now, one lined with understanding and knowledge and self-awareness. Will that lead to forgiveness? I will have to wait and see. I have been blessed to have been given a second chance at life. Not everyone has the opportunity to bring awareness to a horrible situation or create meaning where there once was none. This is the good thing about being public, having the ability to reach a lot of people with a message of positivity. I don't want to be the victim and the perpetrator any longer. I want to have influence, maybe even go to the Capitol and get some laws in place, get some things changed. For starters, I'd create oversight so doctors can be kept accountable for doing harm and being inept. Maybe this is my purpose. By exercising my purpose, I can ensure doctors are more observant of their patients' care and get trained to look for red flags. My medical history was not a red flag, though. It was a goddamn red banner that read, "How could you not know?" How many people saw my real birthday on my Medicaid card and just disregarded it, thinking, oh, look, a typo, oh well. My mother once had to make a preemptive strike to a receptionist at the doctor's office who must have looked at the card. Oh, yes, she said with a smile. Her card says she was born in 91, but she's actually 1995. And that, y'all, was good enough for them. I don't think so. By the time we got the ENT to explore the problem of my squeaky voice, the doctor had been conditioned to not question such a knowledgeable, doting mother. For her to say that a doctor is not going to question a parent is just stupid. No doctor is going to do anything to a child that they don't need. It's just not going to happen. No parent is going to go into a room and say, my daughter needs this, and they're just going to do it. Like, they may test to see why the mother thinks it needs to be done, but they're not just going to do something on the word of a parent. That's ridiculous. Or maybe they didn't want to face her attitude. The way family members did when they would question her about my health. So a surgery was recommended to open my throat to take a peek at my larynx. No biggie. After the beating in the alley, the 2 weeks tied to the bed, the BB gun, the night in the shed, a lifetime of lies, spells, isolation, starvation, emotional manipulation, and medical procedures with life-changing side effects, this unnecessary exploratory surgery on my voice box felt most threatening to me. Any slip of the hand could leave me voiceless, mute forever. This is what I believed. This is how I felt. This is when the thought finally came. It's me or her. Hysterical, I pleaded with my mother to reconsider the surgery. There was no discussion as usual. When we got home from the appointment with the ENT, I took 3 Oxy and craved the fantasy world Nick and I live with. So I messaged him. Do you remember when you told me you'd protect me from anyone who wanted to hurt me? I asked Nick over text. Yes, darling. Will you protect me? Yes, Nick answered. Even from my mother? Yes. The next chapter is negotiations. And from what I hear, everyone is saying that chapter 13 has a lot of kind of weird, inappropriate stuff in it. So we're going to start tomorrow with the negotiations chapter. I'm going to look at some of these. Exactly, user. This is America. Went to the ER for a heart rate of 130 to 80 and they gave you nothing. Exactly. Medicaid isn't going to pay for anything that's unnecessary. It just doesn't happen. My kids have been under Medicaid. They're not anymore. They're under regular health insurance. But when I was and living in poverty, I had to have them on Medicaid. And there were only certain things that Medicaid would pay for. Like if you needed to go to the dentist, they would pay for cleanings and things like that. But my daughter could not get a fill-in under Medicaid off of the basis of just having like teeth pain. Like they needed to actually see the cavity in her mouth in order for them to actually do the fill-in and Medicaid pay for it, if that makes sense. Samantha, I think that the reason why they're not taking her to court is because they don't want to deal with it. They want to just like leave it in the past. Buffy, you're right. Her and her mom were best friends, so why would her mother want to silence her? Well, I think that, of course, it's a lie. It's a lie. The whole book is based on her imagination and fairy tales that she took from whatever Disney princess movie and then manipulated the situations just a little bit so that she could put it in a book and pretend that it was her. Yeah, they wouldn't pay for braces with my daughter. They would not. That was one of the biggest reasons why we had to get like regular health insurance, because my daughter needed braces and Medicaid wouldn't cover it. So, we got regular health insurance and then the braces were covered under that. And even with regular health insurance, not Medicaid, even with regular health insurance, my daughter loves sweet foods. I mean, she loves sweets. So she's had quite a few cavities, but they've never offered to extract a tooth, period. She's never had any teeth extracted, and she's had like 3 cavities. So I'm just throwing that out there. Like, they're not just going to start pulling out teeth for no reason. Thank you so much for gifting. I appreciate everybody for gifting. Let's see. Heather, it's because people aren't. Like, there's so many people out there that still aren't seeing through the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, they're still choosing to ignore what's right in front of our face. Sorry. I didn't get the picture of the shed, but you know what? It's okay. I'll find it and we'll pick that up tomorrow because I know that it's there. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I know that it's there. And I'm feeling like it might be in my spam. And since we're like chit-chatting, I don't want to. I told you it had a window. I knew it had a window. I don't want to look through my emails right now to try to find it in the spam. Right, Jill. When she was at the movies, why didn't she ask for help? Well, if you didn't hear in one of the earlier chapters, she went to knock on a neighbor's door to ask for a ride to go to the hospital to see Dan. If she was so confident to go to a neighbor's house to knock on the door to ask for a ride to the hospital, why couldn't she ask that same neighbor for help? You know what I mean? Like, you already have them there. They're already doing one favor for you, so why not open up to them if you needed help that desperately? Why not open up to them to be like, hey, I'm in a really bad situation. I really appreciate you giving me a ride. I don't want to go home because my mom is doing this, that, or the other to me. Can you help me call the police? Like, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense. And it really bothers me that not more people are pointing those things out. Like, how many people are reading the book? Because once she got out of prison, she started to go on, these podcasts, and she was doing all these interviews, and people started to pay attention to what she was saying, and they started to see a lot of contradictions. And that's when a lot of people started to really pay more attention to the interviews and go back and start doing more investigating to see where the lies were. So I'm curious to see how many people had already had a little bit of skepticism when it came to Gypsy Rose, but were still kind of supporting her. So they decided to buy the book to see if she was going to contradict herself even more. And they're seeing that she's contradicting herself even more, and they redact support. Because she lost a lot of support when she got out of prison. I mean, a lot of support. It turned into people hating on her. And as much as we don't like it, no attention is probably going to make her go away faster than all of the hate attention. But I understand that it's like we want to see her fall. It's frustrating. Augustino, I think that somebody already sent them to me. They're probably just in my spam. We'll pick that up tomorrow, though. I think that the family is also very traumatized, Buffy. Rebecca, you could be right that they want a piece of Gypsy. Violet, Kale is very foolish. And I'm beginning to think that Kaylin probably does not believe Gypsy anymore. Halo, you are right. Her mother was in the hospital several times. And she could have run away then. If it was really a matter of like running away. You know what I mean? Because she had posted on Facebook a couple of times that her mother was in the hospital having some surgery or whatever. So if that were true, she could have left then, but she chose not to. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Where are you, Sassy Missy? She wanted somebody who was going to take care of her. Yeah, I don't think it's going to help her either, back to Bushwick. I think it's going to cause a lot of people to redact support. Yeah, so, oops. So you're probably an hour behind me, which means that if you are an hour behind me, it'll be like 6 p.m. your time. The way that she was like saying that, you know, she had this dream that her mother wasn't her real mother and that Christy was her real mother. It's gross, in my opinion, because it's like you unalived your own mother and now here you are pretending like you wish you had another mom. Yeah, she definitely thought that she was going to be able to go back home and have the house and be able to do whatever she wanted. Mia is definitely much more confident than Gypsy is. PC Plum, if you go to my YouTube page, you can catch up on everything that we've read up until today. I have everything broken down into sections of 3 chapters, starting from the beginning of the book. And then I'll post tonight's video on my page as well. Same name on YouTube, yep. I don't mind Mia. I don't mind her. I think that everyone is benefiting from this situation in some way, shape, or form. And because they are benefiting from this situation, they continue to ignore what's actually going on. And I think that they probably know that Gypsy has been deceitful and has been lying, but they can't publicly say certain things because they're making money off of it right now. And as long as they're making money off of it, they have to look like they are in support of her, because if the family removes support and it's Gypsy on her own, she's going to lose a lot of support. Gypsy is very jealous of Mia. She said it many times. I mean, she said it in literally every single documentary that she's jealous. Mia does stand up to Christy, and Mia does stand up to Gypsy some too. Not enough. Not enough. Nacho, curious why we care about what? I don't know where Ken is. Nobody's seen him in a while. Since that picture when they were down in Florida. Is this what, who? Who are you talking to? Nacho? My identity isn't wrapped up in anything. I'm reading a book that I paid for. So, I believe that too, Pat. Like, there would have been lawsuits. If there was literally nothing that happened that, if things happened that didn't need to happen, there would have been lawsuits. Oh, how'd you hear that? Who's jealous? What? Nacho, what are you talking about? Being jealous of you? That's the question. Odd. What are you even talking about? Like, what you're saying doesn't even make sense. Oh yeah, Caroline. Yes, she does. I would, Sassy Missy, if I was a medical doctor and she was saying that I performed surgeries and things that I didn't need, I would be looking to sue her for defamation. Absolutely. Yeah, nobody is jealous of the gremlin. Nobody. Nobody's jealous of her. I would not trade my life for hers any day. I hope Ryan stays away from her. It looked like she was really sad and upset that he didn't show up for their divorce court. Oh, I found a post on I found a post on Facebook that showed their divorce documents. Let me see if I can find it. Stay there. Okay. How do I go to my saved? Okay. I don't know if y'all are in this group. It's Gypsy Blanchard is a pathological liar and manipulator. Okay, it says the matter came before this honorable court on the 9th day of December 2024. President Gypsy Rose Alcida Anderson and her attorney, not present, Ryan Scott Anderson. It is ordered and declared that the petitioner Gypsy Rose is granted an absolute divorce from the defendant Ryan Scott Anderson, forever dissolving their bonds of matrimony that existed between them. I'm not sure if there's anything in here that talks about money. They probably wouldn't put that on here. Yeah, there's not. You saw it. Ryan is definitely troubled. I mean, both him and Ken are. To go out with a woman in prison and then to start up a romantic relationship with them when you know they committed matricide, like, that's actually insane. Like, I think that they're probably crazier than Gypsy, because I would never find myself talking to a murderer. She can't let go of anyone because she's a narcissist, and narcissists have to have a backup supply, because if anything goes wrong with Ken, she needs to have somebody to fall back on. It's how they roll. It's how the narcissists roll. All right, you guys, I need to get going because it's 9:30 and I need to get up for work in the morning. Got some dogs to groom so I can cover myself in dirty dog water, sweat, and dog hair. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff left out, user. A lot. There was a lot of stuff left out. You never know. He could be pretty kinky, Buffy. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember that this video will be posted on YouTube if you, want to go back and watch everything that we read this evening if you weren't able to catch it from the beginning. But I'll see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard.